Some people master their craft, others build empires. Dr. Milad is both a dentist and a powerhouse entrepreneur who's built a business empire from the ground up. He's the son of immigrant parents, which still gives us hope that the American dream is still alive. As a clinician who's built businesses, I know firsthand how difficult it is to find that bridge and even more difficult to cross it. In this conversation, we talk ownership, mindset, and what it takes to turn skill into freedom. Welcome to the Alpha Renaissance with Dr. Milad. Milad, how are you, man?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me on this show.
No, thanks for coming. I know you're a busy guy.
I always make time for meeting with quality people like yourself, so
appreciate
happy
that.
to be here.
Appreciate that. Good, man. Well, I guess we're gonna jump right into it. I think what I find most interesting about you, right, is like you're a dentist. You know, I'm a clinician as well, right? And oftentimes you have the focus of just that discipline. Most people don't have the capacity or even just the thought to go into business for themselves. What made you want to go into business for yourself?
I mean, I think because you're talking about people go down the clinician pathway because it ensures success and it's got safety built in. And then to make that transition to entrepreneurship is like, let me put all the safety aside and now do something very risky. And so I think naturally people that go down a clinical road are risk averse to a certain extent, right? And they want safety and security, and they go down that road because it's a guaranteed salary and you know what you're gonna make, and the failure rate is low and there's always a demand. And then now you're going into business, and business is the exact opposite.
Totally.
High failure rate, very risky, you never know what's gonna happen. You gotta put up your own money a lot of times. And then, so usually those are two different people. So I think getting rid of that fear, I guess the right way is to reframe your mindset. Instead of looking at it as if I'm gonna do something very risky, it's, hey, I have this this fallback plan, which is being a clinician, that I could always revert back to.
Totally.
To help me out if this doesn't work out. So that was the approach I took, which was like, hey, I'm a clinician. Worst case scenario, I go back to being a clinician. If my business fails, it's not a big deal.
Yeah, I feel, it's like you're not really a risk positive person if you go into healthcare, right? If you go into medicine, you're, like you said, you're very risk averse, and you also haven't been taught how to run a business as well.
Then that's the other component is I think that there are two different skill sets. And, a lot of times people think you should go into the business side of things. I don't necessarily think that's the case. I think you got to know yourself and know what you're good at and what you actually like to do. It's like there's this book I read, and it was talking about like, a lot of times people enjoy a craft and then they think they need to create a business around that craft. So for example, if I like making pies, I start a pie making business.
Right.
Well, the problem is once you get into the pie making business, the last thing you're doing is making pies, because now you're trying to automate it. You're trying to bring other people to make the pies. You're running the business, working the back end. So that like actual craft of making the pies is not your focus anymore. So then you have to decide, is that what I want? Or do I actually just enjoy making the pies and not dealing with all the other stuff?
Yeah, because what you do is very specific, right? You have patients. You've been training very specifically, right? You have patients, they come in with very specific problems. You work in a very specific area of the body, and you deal in minutia, right? And so oftentimes you have to make a pivot when you're running a business, right? You're thinking about not just that patient. You have multiple patients, not just that facility. You have multiple facilities.
Right.
So,
and then it's also, you have insurances that you not got to deal with. You have HR you not got to deal with. You have to deal with IT issues. You have to deal with potentially construction or repairs or legal issues. All these things that like you don't have to worry about as a clinician, and you just go in and do your very specified, procedure or treatment or whatever it is that you focus on, and you leave. Now you got to deal with all the other stuff that comes along with it. So then the question is, am I prepared to do that? Do I want to do that? Right? Does it bring me joy and happiness?
Totally. Yeah. What, in terms of like going into dentistry, like what motivated you to do that?
Yeah. So for me, I think I came from a business background. I shouldn't say background, but I was always very attracted towards entrepreneurship. And then being an immigrant, my parents really forced education and pushed a professional career path. So it was like, okay, your only choice in life is what kind of doctor do you want to be, right? And so I always had that pressure growing up, and it was always like, I'm going to be a doctor. I just got to figure out which kind. I actually started out going to med school. I went to med school for a year.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And originally the game plan was to become a cardiothoracic surgeon. That was like my goal for a long time. Went to med school, realized I was going to hate my life.
You weren't going to be doing
I wasn't going to be doing much entrepreneurship. And I was like, this sucks. So then I ran into a friend who was in dental school, and he was telling me about all of the different business related activities that could potentially be a play in dental, where you could own your own practice, or you could, roll up some practices. And so he's telling me about this, and I was like, wow, that's really intriguing to me. So then I ended up pivoting, dropped out of med school, applied to dental school, then got into dental school.
Wow.
Went to dental school with the intention of opening up my own business. So that was really the thing that attracted me to dentistry, is the ability to be able to shift and take it to an entrepreneurial level.
Yeah, cardiothoracic surgeon. I mean, anytime I take anesthesia call and they want you to take cardiac anesthesia call, I always say to myself, I don't want to do it, because if you go to the hospital and they're calling you back for to repair a case that went earlier, a surgery that went earlier, you will be there for 6 hours.
Oh yeah, that's your life.
Like every time you go to the hospital for cardiac, you're going to be there for 6 hours.
Yeah.
So it is, you kind of dodged a bullet.
Yeah, I did. And it's funny because I have a friend who is a cardiothoracic surgeon. Yeah. I see his lifestyle, and he loves the surgical side.
Totally.
So it works for him. You have to love it.
You have to love it.
You have to love it. So it works. Like, he is that guy. But the lifestyle, I'm just like, man, I can't do that. Like,
I always figured it was like, for you specifically, I figured it was some maybe like family member or like some frame where you were like, okay, like, you have some business exposure when you were younger, and that safety issue of your parents being immigrants pushing that. Where do you think that comes from? Because you always hear that from the kids of immigrants.
Immigrant parents, yeah. I think it's just because they obviously left the situation for a better situation and coming to America, right? So then they have this idea that we didn't come here for you to mess up. You need to be successful. And a lot of times in, third world countries, success is like doctor, lawyer, right? So then engineer. Yeah. So that's what they know, that's a tried and true method for success, and that's what they kind of push on the children too. Like, you're in America, you're going to be successful. We need you to be a doctor.
Yeah.
So I don't blame them. Obviously, that's where they came from, and that's what they know. So that's what they taught their children. But then once you get here, and you realize that success has many different faces, many different roles.
OnlyFans.
You could be successful without going to school. You could be
influencer, podcaster.
Listen, my kids look up to YouTubers more than anybody else, right? And
Isn't
if you
crazy?
ask them what their dream job is, like 20 years ago, a YouTuber didn't exist, and now YouTubers are like their top choices.
And you can't tell them they're going to be like a loser.
Right?
You can't tell them like they're going to be a low life. Like, they're like, no, like, actually, Mr. Beast.
But but then they tell you, like, oh, look at Mr. Beast. He's a billionaire. He's not even 30 yet. And you're like,
he's a billionaire.
You can't.
God, sure
the B.
Wow.
You can't even argue with that now. It's like, yeah, you're right.
What is that internal? Because again, you have your parents come from this situation where they're avoiding risk. They're in a new country. They're strangers. They want you to be successful. So their entire strategy is risk averse.
Yeah.
What type of internal conversations did you have with yourself,
I think,
to motivate you out of that mold?
Yeah. That's a good question. I think that actually probably defines a lot of people's lives more than anything, the aversion to risk.
Yes.
A lot of people live their life avoiding pain, and some people live their life seeking pleasure, right? And those are two different roads. And I think your risk tolerance will directly affect your success as an entrepreneur? Not success in general, but success as an entrepreneur. Because the way I look at it is, look, I'm an immigrant. I came from almost nothing, right? We grew up in a 1-bedroom apartment, me, my sister, my parents. So to me, that's the baseline, right? So worst case scenario, I go right back there. It's not a big deal. Like I'm not worried about losing everything and ending up with nothing, because I'm still at a better place than I was before I came here. So the way I look at it, and I think the way I looked at it in general, was like, so what? What's the worst case that'll happen? You lose it. That's okay. You're still better off, you know? And I think that helped me take chances and risks that normally I wouldn't have. And then you don't even entertain the thought of failure. You think about it initially and you say, okay, that's the worst case scenario. Am I okay with that? And once you say yes to that, then you're just looking forward, right? You're not looking, you're looking up, you're not looking down. You're just saying, how high can I take this thing? And if it doesn't work, it's okay.
It doesn't work out.
In fact, I would say I've had way more failures in my life than successes. It's just the few things that were successful worked out for me to offset all of my failures. But I've had so many ventures and so many things that I've done that like just flopped. And you just take it on the chin and you keep it pushing.
What is that? I mean, and I feel what you're saying about, I had that same feeling when I was, coming up, growing up, coming from Inglewood, Chicago. I was like, at the end of the day, if this doesn't work, I'll just go back to the ghetto.
Inglewood. It's all good.
Go back to Inglewood.
You know what that's like.
I was like, whatever. Like, it can't be worse than that.
It can't be worse than that.
Success has to be better than that.
It's better,
so, no, I get that. What do you think that's about in terms of like when you face that failure, right? And for some people, it completely shuts them down. Right, where like they want to be an entrepreneur. It says it on their profile on social media, like entrepreneur. But then, you talk to them, they've had some failures and it just completely shuts down and they're back to the drawing board or, back to their job.
And I think it goes back to perspective. The way you see the world is your reality, right? And it doesn't matter what anybody else says. Whatever you think is the reality of your world, that is the reality of the world. So I think you look at failure and you can say, hey, this defeated me. Or you look at it and say, okay, what did I learn from this? What can I take from this to the next venture? And what am I not going to do again? And what am I going to repeat? And there's always lessons in everything. So it's like, any failure in life, whether it's a relationship, a business, anything, you've got to step back and do some self-analysis, do some deep thinking and say, what are the things that this taught me? Because everything has a lesson, right? No matter what it is, whether it's good or bad, there's a lesson in it. And as humans, you're always evolving and you're always growing. And if you don't step back to analyze and really think about what you can take away from something, then it was a waste of time. But if you learn something from it, then it's only going to make you better, right? And that's not to say it'll make you successful, but it'll definitely improve your chances with the next project. So a lot of times people will have a setback and they'll just go back to what they're comfortable with and then they never try again, right? But you just wasted that opportunity and all of the things that you learned and you're not going to do anything with it, right? So you can't let that fear debilitate you because you just learned so much. So the next thing you do is probably going to be way more successful than the last thing you did. So this is your opportunity. Go back.
Even though it doesn't feel as though like
even though it doesn't feel that way. Right? It's kind of like, if you end up with you break up from a relationship, initially you're like, I'm never going to find someone. This is it. I'm always going to be alone. And then, a year later you've met someone.
1 month later.
Or sometimes, sometimes even sooner. 1 month later, you meet someone and you're like, wow, if I didn't have that breakup, I wouldn't have the opportunity to be where I am now. And I'm in a much happier place now, right? So a lot of times it might be a breakdown for a better buildup.
For you, what was that a character trait that you had, or was it a grit that you had to build upon?
In terms of like the failures and bouncing back?
In terms of dealing with failure. Was it something where you were like, you always were really good with dealing with failure? Or like, how did you get to that point to just shake it off, learn? Because that process too, right, is I remember when I first started podcasting, it was so painful to listen to my voice.
Yeah.
I would cringe.
You're like all unnatural, stiff. Your voice sounds funny. Yeah.
And I'm just like, oh, mistake. Disfluency. How many times did I say like?
Yeah.
I'm just going through it. And then you get over that. And like, now I'll post stuff and there's typos. I'm like, well, it's not AI.
Yeah. You rolled out of bed. You're here doing the podcast. Exactly. It comes off natural.
Yeah. What was that like for you? Was it something a grit that you learned, or was it personality?
I think probably a mixture of both. I do think some people are naturally better at bouncing back, and some people just naturally have a different outlook on life. And I say that because I have probably 100 employees, right? And they're all very different. You have some that are just naturally motivated, right? And they could be younger, inexperienced, but they just have that, that X factor that pushes them forward. So I think some of it is innate, irrespective whether you naturally have that or you don't. It's just like going to the gym. You build up muscle strength by breaking down the muscle and building it back up and doing it over and over and over, right? So it's the same thing. You build up that grit, you build up that resistance to failure by doing it, understanding that this is part of the process, and then going back out and doing it again, even if that's not what you want to do.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And I would imagine it takes time, right? Like how long, hundreds of employees, I mean, that's a lot to manage.
Oh, it's a lot. Yeah,
it's a lot to manage. What do you see in terms of differences with your? How would you categorize the differences in your employees? Is it generational?
Not necessarily. I do think. I don't know if it's me being the old guy that's like, man, my generation, we used to do X, Y, Z. I do feel like, you know what? I shouldn't say that. There's still a lot of people with a lot of hustle and drive.
Yeah.
I think because of changes in social media and technology, it's a little easier to not take things as seriously.
Yeah.
So I think there is some of that in terms of like, for example, like even 10, 15 years ago, when people would show up for interviews, they would dress up nice and they would come in and they'd be on time. And now it's like a lot more laid back. Yeah. And they're just more cash. They stroll in a little later than normal. Crocs. Yeah. So I think some of that's changed from, 10, 20 years ago till now. But overall, you do have a lot of different opportunities that are available now. So back then, like if you didn't have capital, it was very hard to start a business. Now you can jump online and start monetizing off the content that you're creating that doesn't cost much except for your time, right? So you've got kids that are like reselling, doing Airbnb arbitrage. Like these things there wasn't even an option when I was growing up. It was like, if you didn't have money, you couldn't buy something to sell. No. And now it's like, you don't even need capital. It's digital. So you've got all these different options. I know kids that are 20 trading options on Robinhood through their phone, making a ton of money.
So different.
Like that wasn't an opportunity for us,
No, it wasn't. Kids, and they're so much more aware of the world. Yeah. Right. They know a lot more than we did. Right. Because they just hop on their phone. Not just Google, they're ChatGPT. Yeah. Which is like, man, they next really level. Like, I mean, they're not just looking up like, oh, you said Michael Jordan had so many points in that game. Yeah. They're like, no, you can compare. I mean, they're so much more aware of what's going on in the world.
But this is actually a good segue into the issue is now you have so much knowledge, right? Yeah. But it's like, do you have the work ethic to take that knowledge and do something with it? And I think that's kind of what's lacking in a lot of the younger generation is they have the awareness, they have the know-how, but then they don't have the discipline to say, I'm going to take something and I'm going to push and work for it. And I'm going to put in the daily grind that it takes to get it to a certain level, right? Because it's a lot of, if you look at the way our brains have changed, we now consume things very quickly and we're always looking for the next hit, right? You're watching Instagram reels that are 10, 15 seconds, TikTok videos, 10, 15 seconds, little micro doses of information all day long, right? But then it's like, great, you need to get your brain and your mind to focus on one thing and stick with it and focus and build and grind on that one thing for a while until you see some results, right? It's not like, hey, I'm gonna be a YouTuber, let me shoot a couple of YouTube videos, and if it doesn't work, well, that sucks, let me go on to the next thing, right? So I think that's missing a little bit, and I think that's what some of the younger generation needs to understand, is that miracles don't happen overnight. Even though you have the information, you actually have to put in the hard work to get it somewhere.
Well, like when you were young, right? What did you have to help you, right? Did you have mentors, or did you have to create your own blueprint? Yeah,
so I had to create my own blueprint because, like I said, my parents were immigrants. I was the one translating my report card to them. It wasn't them guiding me about like, hey, you should do this or you should do that with your life, or even like college applications. Like nobody knew how to fill out a college application. So I was doing that for the first time. So I really didn't have mentors growing up where it was like, wow, so-and-so is a guiding force in my life. I had to do a lot of that on my own, and just figure things out. In hindsight, if I had a mentor, I feel like it would have helped me out tremendously.
Totally, yeah.
And that's what I try to be for people now when I have the opportunity, is how can I tell you some of my mistakes or guide you in a way that'll help you improve your life faster so you're not having to make the same mistakes. So yeah, I didn't really have a mentor growing up at all.
That's insane. I mean, you have 100 employees and no mentor.
No mentor. Yeah. It was just kind of figure it out as you go. And you know, the good thing is there was nobody to tell me no.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Your idea is stupid.
Yeah.
Don't do it.
You're just Alexander on the battlefield going.
Exactly. Yeah. Just go out there and do it. Which, you know, bit me in the butt a few times, but then it also allowed me to do whatever I wanted to do without having to worry, I guess. So in hindsight, I still think having a mentor is a good thing.
Totally.
And if there was somebody that I could have looked up to, that would have been nice.
I mean, it sounds like you had to take a lot of initiative.
Yeah.
Right. What did that look like as you were coming up? Like, and like you were in med school, say it wasn't for you, went into dentistry because you had more of an entrepreneurial mindset.
Yep.
So what did you have to take the initiative on as you were in dental school to kind of prepare yourself so that when you got out, you were able to follow your dreams, open up these practices?
Right. So I think my journey started out as a kid. I was always, I remember we were in grade school and there was like magazines with cheat codes for like Mortal Kombat video games and things like that. So I used to go
wait for them to come out.
You had to wait for them to come out. So I would go to my dad's office. He had a photocopy machine, and I would copy these pages and I would sell them at school to the kids, so they wouldn't have to buy the whole magazine. They could just get the cheat codes for like $2.
They didn't have to go to Funko Land.
They didn't have to go to Funko. Exactly, none of that. So that's where it started. I started doing that. Then I started selling like I remember the vending machine by the gym was broken, and I saw that as an opportunity. I was like, I need to start selling soda at the gym. And so I rented out this kid's locker, and I would freeze soda pops and bring them in there, and then they would thaw by the time gym was over, and I would sell them for like $1 a pop.
That's genius.
And it was like, it turned into a whole little store. It was funny. And then I was making decent money off that. Then I ended up, I met a friend who had a car dealership. So then I started messing around with cars, and I would buy a car here and there. Then he ended up selling me the business. And so I was in college running a car dealership for a little bit.
What do you think, man, first off, that's nuts. What do you think it is about car dealerships and entrepreneurship? Because a lot of great entrepreneurs I know personally, they always had some interaction with flipping cars.
Flipping cars.
Whether they had a lot or not.
Yeah.
They could get you a car.
Let me get you. So honestly, I think it's a great, if you are interested in sales or business, I think it's a great field to get into initially, because that's where you're going to learn basic sales 101, right? One of the first jobs I had was at a car dealership. I worked at a Nissan dealership when I was 18 for one summer. And then I started the car dealership, but you learn to sell.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter. And I tell my employees, I tell my dentists this now, I'm like, I don't care what your product is. If you're selling teeth, if you're selling boots, if you're selling surgery, it doesn't matter what it is, right? You are selling something. people are always selling you something. And if you know how to do it well, you will be more successful at whatever it is you're selling, right?
Yes. When did you realize that, by the way? Like, everything is a sale.
Everything is a sale. I think I didn't realize that, honestly, till maybe like early on in my dental career, when I had my dental office and I had patients coming in, and I had just opened this office, and 20s. I was like,
it was like
yeah,
20s.
my late 20s, where I was like, okay, I got to convert these people to actual patients so I could get some work done and I could pay my bills and I could pay my employees, because now there's nobody else giving me a check. I'm the one writing the checks to everybody. And it was like, okay, I remember we'd have a patient that would come in at like, so we'd close at 6. Patient would come in at like 5:45, right? And then I would be talking to them, and they'd be like, you know what, let's go ahead and do it. And it was like 6 o'clock. All the employees want to leave, and I'm like, let's start. Let's go ahead and do this. And I think that's where I realized, like, okay, the better I am at sales, the better my business will be.
Yes.
And so now I actually teach sales to my dentists and employees. Because, for example, even if you're, one of the girls answering the phone, scheduling patients.
Yeah.
If you call my office and you're like, hey, I'm thinking about pulling my wisdom teeth. I'm just calling around to see what you guys charge, right? That's an opportunity for me to sell you an appointment, right? I don't have to sell you to get your teeth taken out because I'm not the dentist. But as the front desk, my job is to get you to schedule.
Yes.
So how am I selling you that appointment? If I tell you, hey, you know what, we've got the best doctors in town, why don't we book you for a free consultation and you come in? I just sold you, right? The appointment. Even though there was no money transacted, I took your time and I turned it into an appointment. And that's going to translate into production for the doctor and, a potential lifelong patient. So
I think you're younger, you don't understand, that
it.
entrepreneurial brain. Like, if you call someone and you ask a technical question, they're responding with a sale.
Yeah. It's all a sale. It's all a sale.
Like, I need my tooth pulled.
Yeah.
They're like, okay, we have the best teeth pullers in town.
In town, yeah.
We're going to convert you.
Right. And that's, if you strip it all back, like, at its core, it's me as a human understanding what your needs are and trying to fulfill that need for you, right? And that's what sales is. It's not me just pushing whatever product I have. It's me figuring out what is it that you need, and if I have something that can satisfy that need or want, how do I get you to understand that I can do that for you? Yeah. And that translates into a sale, right?
Yeah.
So
I've read some of these Alex Hormozi.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Shout out to Alex Hormozi. I love his work.
Yeah.
I mean, it's great. I mean, he breaks it down into like detail, step by step. And you would think, okay, why you would think people would gatekeep, right?
Yeah.
But he just gives you all of this information in this format. But again, it's up to you.
It's up to you what you want to do with it.
Put it into practice.
But the thing is, the sales will translate into like just better relationships also, right? And I don't mean it in a conniving way where you're like trying to get people to do something they don't want to do. It's just, to be a good salesman, you have to understand people. And to be a good human, you have to understand people. So they kind of go hand in hand. So I think everybody who's interested in entrepreneurship should try out some type of a profession that forces you to go out and sell something to someone so that you can learn quickly how to connect with people. People like buying stuff from people they connect with, right? Yeah. And it doesn't matter. I've bought stuff from people that I didn't need anything from, but just because they were nice, I'm like, you know what? I'll buy that cream.
That human element.
The human element, yeah. And it's just making that connection.
It's, you hear these days where people are very to say that they're anti-capitalist, right? So to say that being a businessman, being a salesperson makes you a better human is probably
oh yeah,
for most people.
And honestly,
because they're like, kill the rich, billionaires are evil.
Yeah.
But actually, there's a human need that these businesses are creating. For people, that is helping people.
It's honestly, when I sit dentists down, when I hire a new dentist and I do some training with them, and I have my sales course that I take them through. At first, they're all like, oh my God, this guy's talking about sales. I didn't go to school to become a salesman.
I came to school to help people.
I came to school to help people. I'm like, well, how are you going to help people if they're not accepting your care?
Yeah.
And that's what you realize. So in school, you're learning how to treat and how to do all the clinical stuff. But they don't teach you that you have to get people to say yes first.
Yeah.
Like, you could be the best surgeon in the world, but if nobody's saying yes to letting you operate on them, you're not a good surgeon.
Yes,
you know?
yes.
You have the skill, but you're not helping anybody.
Yeah.
So once you realize that, hey, I have to get people to say yes to allowing me to perform surgery on them, then I could be the best surgeon in the world.
Totally.
Right? So that's the sales component
You have to sell
it. And so I go through training with these doctors, and then by the end of it, their minds are like awakened to how important the sales aspect is.
Yeah.
And again, everybody thinks sales is just pushing things that you don't need down somebody else's throat, and that's not what it is at all. It's just the connection.
Yeah. It's deeper than that. I think that's important to remember, because I think, again, obviously there are bad aspects of big business.
And bad apples.
And bad
there are.
people that just like, they're just trying to rip people off.
Big pharma.
But also, like, our world, especially in this country, does not revolve if we are not meeting people's needs. Right? If Apple, $1 trillion company, doesn't figure out how to make a device to make your life easier every year, your life may be more difficult.
Right.
And that's just a product. You know? But that product is important for your human need.
Right. No, I agree with you. I think there's good and bad in everything, and business can take a negative turn, and it does in some industries. But generally speaking, I think it's a skill that everybody should cultivate.
Absolutely. Yeah. So you put your dentists and your staff through your sales course, right? Is this sales course available?
Is it? Log into my website for $7.99 a month. I'll teach you everything you need to know. No, I haven't gone down that road yet. Honestly, I think at some point, I need to take the things that I've learned, and turn it into some type of training program, because it would be very helpful for a lot of people. I do make the information available to my staff. I'm not out there, giving it out to anybody, but I don't have a problem with teaching people the tools that they need to do their job better, because at the end of the day, the better they do, the better I do. We're all one team. But essentially, I think if I had to boil down sales, it's understanding what is important to the person that you're dealing with, that you're trying to sell to, right? So if I know, for example, you're more interested in looking good than in being healthy, right? That changes the dynamic. If you're like, I don't care if I have cavities, but if my teeth look white, I'm gonna feel good, right? I know the type of person I'm dealing with. I'm dealing with somebody that's more interested in vanity than in health, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm like that in certain aspects. And so I'm gonna speak to that, right? I'm gonna talk to you about how I can say, look, if you have a cavity, your tooth's gonna turn black. That's ugly. We need to fix that. You don't want a black tooth, right? You want a nice shiny white tooth. So the only way we could do that is with a cavity. Whereas if I'm sitting here telling you about all the negative health effects of having a cavity,
like a dental textbook, like these are the indications for refilling a cavity.
Or this is gonna lead to potential heart disease if you don't fix this cavity, right? You're over here like, bro, I don't care.
If
it doesn't look good, I don't care.
I smoke a pack of cigarettes a day. I just want white teeth.
I just want white teeth. So if I don't know that, I'm here selling you something that you're not interested in. But once I know who I'm dealing with, I can speak in your language, right? So I think that's the essence of sales, is understanding that. And then to become the next level salesperson is, how do I overcome objections? So when you say something like, that's great, I like white teeth, but I can't afford to pay $400 for that cavity filling, right? How do I overcome that? That's what makes me a good salesperson, is, okay, I'm trying to get somebody who maybe hadn't budgeted for this expense to spend this money, right? So I have to show them the value of spending this money, right? And that's where the education component comes in. So I think that's what makes somebody a good salesman. One, understanding the person, their audience, and then two, educating them on why they need what they need.
Speaking of rejection, right? I feel like in my business life, you have a rejection, which is, someone saying, I don't know, which is kind of a lead, actually. Then you have rejection. No, I will not. I don't need it. How do you deal with those two personalities?
I think it's actually, I love the passionate rejections. The no's, because there's something behind that that's pushing them to be so passionate about the no, versus like the people that are kind of indifferent and they're just like, nah, let me just think about it. You know what I mean? Like that person could be a little harder. Whereas
So actually, it's a harder no.
it's a harder no. Yeah, exactly. Versus if you're just like, no, absolutely not. I don't understand why you're just pushing this. I just told you I don't have any money, right?
Yeah.
And I say, okay, let's talk about that. If I can make this work for you financially, are you on board, right? Because they're usually passionate about one particular thing. So if you can overcome that one particular objection, you've got somebody that'll. I've had people.
Yeah, that's
listen,
true.
I had a guy. This was when I was starting out. I had a guy. He came to the office and I gave him the treatment plan, which is like, you know, the total cost of everything. And he goes, "You think I'm gonna make your BMW car payments for you? I'm not here to help you pay your car note." I was like, "Sir, first of all, I drive a Lamborghini, okay? This isn't even gonna touch half the month's car payment. So let's talk about why you're really here, right?" And when I said that to him, he was just like, "Oh, okay," taken aback a little bit. And then we ended up becoming friends. He ended up getting the whole thing done. But it's like most people would be like, "Oh no, I didn't mean it that way." Like, "Oh no." But if you approach that objection head on and you say, "That's great that you think you're making my car payment, but my car payment is 3 times what this costs, right? So this isn't going to make a dent in my car payment, but it is going to change your life. So let's talk about that."
Yeah,
right?
You're not going to change my life.
You're not going to change my life, but I can change your life, right? And once they understand that, and then you also take like a comedic approach to the objection.
Yeah.
Then they're like, "Oh, okay, this guy's like cool, and he's not trying to just take my money, right? He's actually here talking to me about something I need."
Yeah, but it's like you have that gift, right? Where you
Well,
have.
I think you have to develop that, because you know what's funny is I didn't know how to do that.
Okay.
I remember coming out of dental school, and if I had that situation, some of it, personality is a big factor, right? Some people are naturally charismatic, charming, they can talk. But a lot of those things can be developed. I didn't know how to handle that question. When I first came out of dental school and somebody said that when I was working at my first job, I'd be like, "Yeah, you're right. It's expensive. I mean, I don't know what to tell you."
Like, listen, I don't have a Lamborghini now, but I'm going to get one.
I don't even have a BMW right now. I got student debt that I'm paying off. Like, that Toyota Camry out back is mine, right?
Yeah.
But
those days.
But you know, you learn as you kind of go through that sales process.
Yeah.
Where instead of cowering and like falling back, how do I use this as an opportunity, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes you don't make a sale. You're not going to make every single sale, or you're not going to please every single person. But the more you learn about the different techniques and the different approaches, the better of a salesperson you can become.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember one of the best advice that I had, because I had that issue where if I had to fundraise, I hated asking people for money, whether it was for a company or whether it was nonprofit. And I would just donate the money.
You're like, forget it. I'll write the check.
I'll write the check. And I started to think about it. I was like, I actually need to develop this skill.
Yeah.
Right. And one piece of advice that someone gave me, they were like, "Listen, don't ask the person as if you're asking for yourself. Ask for your calls.
Yeah.
Put your calls front and center. And that's what you're asking for." And then it took the personality out of the ask.
Right.
And it was just like, oh, that feels so much better.
Yeah.
Because I will be damned if I ask you for a nickel for myself, because I don't need it, right?
You don't need it, yeah.
You know, but.
Well, and I think you also have the fear of rejection. That's
100%.
That's a big component to that, which is one of those things that unfortunately, the more you get rejected, the better you become at handling rejection.
Totally.
Right? So you have to go out there and put yourself out there to get rejected. That's why I like those high, intense sales professions for young entrepreneurs, because you go out there, you get rejected, you make sales, you're learning really, really quickly. That summer at that car dealership, I learned so much.
Yes.
So much about people, about sales, all of that. That translated into a lot of things in my life. So I think handling rejection is a big component too.
It is. It's really, you need volume of rejection.
Volume of rejection.
To be better.
Volume.
You need a volume.
Yeah.
You need to walk up to that girl.
It's like when you're single, you walk up to the girl.
That girl.
You know she's out of your league. You know she's going to tell you no.
Yeah.
But you just need to go there, and you got to experience that rejection, because it'll make you a better person.
No, and once you get a yes, you know, in that situation, you'll feel like an imposter.
Yeah.
Even with the yes, I can't believe
You're like, I can't believe I pulled this.
I'm going to the movies with this hottie. How
Yeah.
did that happen?
Yeah.
But you know, but it makes you better. That after a while, you just start to believe, like, wait, hold on, actually, I'm that dude.
Yeah.
I'm that guy. You know?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, rejection it's a tough one, man.
It's a tough
I feel like it just cripples people because it's one of those paradox, right? Where you have to have the rejection in order to get over the rejection. If it's your fear, you have to run to it.
Well, I think ego is a big component, right? So a lot of times our successes and failures in life come from this idea of ego and this idea of who we are, right? You have this idea that I am a successful person. I cannot be rejected. So I'd rather not ask somebody out and just not have anybody, but never be rejected than ask a bunch of people out and maybe get rejected, 7 times out of 10, right?
Yeah.
So I think it plays to our ego when we get rejected and you feel like you are not worthy, right, of something. But the reality is your ego is something that you created, right?
Yeah.
You are your biggest limiting factor. So if in your mind you say, hey, I'm Dr. Milad, I don't get rejected by girls. I won't approach a girl unless I know that she's going to say yes, right? That's going to limit me from a lot of experiences in life and a lot of people that may have said yes to me, but my fear of rejection didn't allow me to approach them because internally I thought they would say no.
Yeah.
So I think once you break that ego component down, and that's a big barrier in a lot of things in life, once you break that down and you say, I'm not anybody, right?
Yeah.
I am who I am. This idea that I've created of who I am is just that, an idea. It doesn't really exist.
It's all in my head.
It's all in my head.
Doesn't exist.
Doesn't exist. The only thing that's real is this moment right here, right?
Totally.
And however it plays out is however it plays out. It has nothing to do with who I am. I'm not a bad person if I get rejected or if I fail at this, job or take this risk and it doesn't pan out. It's not a reflection of me, right? It just didn't work out in that situation.
And good people get rejected.
Good people get rejected.
Bad things happen to good people.
Yeah.
All the time.
All the time. And I think when you have this expectation of how things should go and that expectation isn't met, that's when your ego gets bruised. But if you can train your ego to not have many expectations, then you have so many more opportunities that you'll take that may work out, and you wouldn't have taken that if you'd allowed your ego to get in the way. So
yeah, it's a tough one, man, because you want to get better, but you don't know why you're not getting better, and it's these thoughts that you have from this ear to that ear that are preventing you from actually realizing what you want. And what do you have like advice for people that are trying to, like, what's a practice that they can do to kind of get over that?
Get over that ego.
Get over that ego, because it's crippling. It's crippling for so many people. And it's not just in business, man. It's in everything. Where people don't seek better relationships, right? With whether it's better friendships, better romantic relationships. They don't seek them out because they're afraid to reach out to, say, you're a guy, you're looking for more guy friends to play golf with or go out with, just afraid to even say, hey, what's up, man? Let's go shoot some pool or whatever.
Yeah.
Or afraid to go make that move to that woman, right? Or afraid to, hey, let's start this company. Yeah. Hey, I do need capital. I'm just afraid of that rejection of thinking like, hey, people won't believe me. People are going to say no. And if they do, it's going to crush me.
I think one of the things I do is, in the mornings, like before, when I start my day, I like to sit down sometimes and just do some affirmations and do a little bit of meditating. And one of the things I do is, I'll sit with myself and I'll say, you are not your successes. You are not your failures. Like, none of these things define who you are. And I think in society, we let that define us so much, right? And so much of our self-belief is based on how much money you have, who you're with, what you're doing with your time, how many followers you have, all these things that are just like man-made and superficial. But the reality is you're none of those things.
Totally.
You're not, right? If I took away everything you've done up until this point today and I just erased all that, right, magically, you would still be who you are sitting here right now, because you're just the summation of these experiences that you've had and you've developed into this person that you are, right? You still have the same heart even if you don't have a car outside, right?
Yes.
So none of those things define you. So I think if you can repeat that, and the more you affirm that within yourself, the more you'll understand that if it works out, great. If it doesn't work out, that's okay too, because none of that is going to change who I am as a person, right?
Yes.
So I think that's the work that you have to do with crushing your ego, because as you go throughout your day, your ego wants to come out so many times.
100%.
Somebody cuts me off in traffic, I'm like, how dare you cut me off in traffic?
Don't you know who I am?
You know who I am?
I'm Dr. Milad.
What's wrong with you? I remember I had this the other day. I was driving, and I had a nice car, and this like hoopty cuts me off, right? And I was like, okay. And then he got so worked up. He like pulled over and was like, get out of the car. You want to fight, right? You want to fight. And in that moment, I was just like, the old me would have like engaged and been like,
gave him
yo,
a finger
what's wrong with you? Look at your car. This is why you're never going to make it. Look at what you're worried about. Like,
I see why I have so many dings on it.
Exactly. Now it makes sense. Instead of wasting your time with me, why don't you go get a job?
Dude, horrible. I used to do the same.
Something like that. But then now I've learned to reframe my mind, and it's like, you don't know what that person's going
100%,
through, right?
Yes.
Maybe he just got fired that morning, right? And he's taking that out on you, right?
Yeah.
And you don't need to take that negativity on.
No.
So now I'm just like, hey, I'll apologize, or I'll just ignore, and I'll just keep it pushing.
Keep going.
And so I think
just let it go.
Let it go. And I think that's something that requires patience and requires work. It's just just like going to the gym. Like, you don't develop muscles overnight. You got to go there. You got to train. You got to be put in situations like that to test yourself, and then see if you can pull back. Initially, you won't be able to. You'll react. Then maybe the second time, you'll think about it before you react. Then maybe the third time, you'll react halfway and you'll think about it more. And then eventually, after 10, 15 times, maybe you don't allow it to phase you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I think...
Or more.
Yeah. Honestly, more.
Some things that are
it's
Achilles heel.
lifelong
Because you always have this ego. I mean, that is so tight. Like you said, it's so tight until... This is my job. This is my title, and it's always. It's like it's like a little demon on your shoulder. Yeah, like, you gonna take that? Oh, you can do better.
You can do better.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Did you see the way the server talked to you at that restaurant?
Yeah,
it's like,
they did it to you because you're so tall. Because you're so short.
Yeah,
because you're so brown.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, and it's just like, yo, that's actually probably not reality.
No,
because you're not that important.
You're not that important. Exactly. You're
not that important. You're replaceable.
You're replaceable.
Somebody just was born to replace you right now.
You're just you're like a side character in someone's life at that moment, right? And you think you're the main character, but you're really just part of the supporting cast.
100%. Yeah, what they call it,
NPC.
Non-playable
character. Yeah, you're just an NPC.
Yeah, I know. I'm getting better with all of these gaming. These Gen Zs, they'll say, yeah, you're just an NPC. I'm like, ChatGPT.
Oh, the best is... Like, some of my employees, just the texting, they use so many abbreviations now.
All abbreviations. One of my nephews, he had all the people on his phone. I was like, hey, call this person. Call my sister. It was all emojis.
All emojis, yeah.
It was all emojis. Yeah. I was like, dude, how do you know which one? And it was like 10 emojis. Okay, smiley faces, that's like funny. Angry faces. Yeah, man, I guess it's... you have this practice where you're training clinicians, you're training your staff, right? Particularly your dentists, and everything that we've talked about, you're trying to drill into them with your course, right? This course that you haven't scaled, will scale in the future.
Coming soon.
How do you, when you're doing that and in your experience of working with so many dentists, what's the difference between a good dentist and a good entrepreneur?
I think they're definitely different skill sets. A good dentist, you can diagnose properly, you can connect with people, and you can treat them, and you're also able to handle situations as they arise. And make the most out of it. So I think if you can do those things really well, you'll be a good dentist. To be a good entrepreneur, you've got to, so the way I explain it is to be a good dentist, it's like playing checkers, right? Things move in a certain position. Once you learn how things move, then you can play the game. To be a good entrepreneur, you can react. To be a good entrepreneur, you have to learn how to play chess, okay? You have to learn how all the pieces move, one, because now all the pieces move the same way. Because I have different employees, different things I have to deal with, and not all of them can be handled the same. So like, if you're a sensitive front desk staff, I can't talk to you the same way I can talk to like, a sterilizer, right? Or a dentist or somebody
sterilizers,
else.
I don't care what they are. They always have thick skin.
Thick skin, exactly. So you got to know who you're dealing with, right? And then you have to know how they move. And then you also have to know, what is my game plan for winning this game, right? How do I move these pieces the way that they like to be moved? And then how do I get the whole thing to move the way I want it to move to get me to my end goal? So I think as an entrepreneur, there's a lot more, I guess, analysis that has to take place. And then you also have to have a game plan that's a little broader and involves a lot more complexities than being just a good clinician. Now, I'm not taking away anything from being a good clinician. Totally. That's difficult too.
Because that's the whole point. That is the commodity. That is the service.
That is the service, right? That has to be done well, and it has to be done to a high level. And that's difficult to do as well, you know, especially when you're dealing with something like the human body where things change. You might have a situation where somebody seems straightforward, you get in there and it's totally complex, and it turns out to be just a big mess.
Well, I mean, that's why I think there's always, it's something about cars, right? Because cars are themselves machines. They're complex machines, right? And then, you work, you sell cars, it does, you have to be a chess player because anything could be wrong with the car. Your clientele, they're in various conditions, right? Much like your patients are. And when you're a dentist, you're working in this space, right? Which is kind of, it's like the micro perspective, but it's super complex. Everything in this space affects the body, right? And then when you're running a business, you have to put on a macro lens.
Exactly, yeah.
And think about the bigger picture.
Yeah, I think that's the hardest part is understanding when you got to dive in small and when you got to scale back and look at the big picture. And then as an entrepreneur, you have to wear multiple hats. As a dentist or a clinician or, a specialist, whatever you are, you only wear that one hat. So I think that takes some getting used to too, and that's something different.
Totally. Was that something that you learned running your first practice?
Yeah.
Like what was the hardest lesson you learned running your first practice?
I think working in the business versus on the business, that's something that is a hard lesson to learn, because initially you're coming in as the dentist or as the person that's like doing the services or creating the product, and then now you're running the business, and that's a totally different skill set. So working in the business and on the business, meaning, if I'm spending my time creating the product or selling the service, how am I building up the business and creating something that's scalable and something that'll grow so that I don't have to be the person creating the product or selling the service, right? I can be on the outside. I think that's something that I just had to learn as I went from, one practice to bringing on an associate and then growing into a second practice, and then eventually getting to a point where I realized me actually providing the service is harming my business because I'm not able to work on the business because I'm so focused on working in the business. So I think that's an inflection point that a lot of entrepreneurs who are owner operators. Now, if you get into a business that you know nothing about the actual technical side, that's different because you always started working on the business from the get-go.
Yes.
Whereas if you are the actual service provider or provider of the goods or manufacturer or salesperson, then it's a little different than when you're the owner of that business.
Yeah, I mean, because that, again, like when you're working as a dentist, you're working and your responsibilities are not that of the owner or the manager, you live a completely different life.
Totally different life.
Your life is completely different
Yeah.
than the clinicians that work under you.
I'm envious of them in some cases. I tell them too, because a lot of them, they all have this aspiration of owning their own business and having their own practice, but they really shouldn't, because they're just clinicians and that's what they're really good at. They don't understand that once you have that practice, you're gonna have to do so many other things that you don't really want to do because you really just care about seeing patients. And so a lot of them, I tell them, I'm like, listen, you clock in, you do your thing, and you clock out.
Yeah.
Nobody's calling you at midnight because the storm drain on the roof overflew and now your space is flooded and your server is down. Yeah. Or you have
20 cases that day.
20 cases, or something happened. You know, Susie up front can't make it to work and she just texted you at midnight that she's not feeling well. Nobody's gonna answer the phones tomorrow, and you got to figure that out. So you thought you were just gonna go for a nice workout with your trainer? Yeah, literally. Literally, you think everything. So, but when you're an employee, you don't deal with any of that. You show up, you do your job, and you leave. Yeah. But then when you're an entrepreneur, you're never off the clock. You're always on the clock. Now, on the plus side is you're also not set on a schedule. You know, my days are very different than you know, when I was practicing clinically or my dentist days. I don't have to be anywhere at any one time. I could get up and leave tomorrow and go to Miami and hang out there for the day, right? Yeah. So I have that flexibility, but then I'm also never off either. Totally. So totally different lifestyle. Yeah. How did that work? You started your first practice. What was that like? So started the first practice a year out of dental school. As soon as I got out, I knew I was going to open up my own practice. So I took on 3 different part-time jobs just so I could see how people were doing their versions of dentistry and learning from each one to see what I liked and what I didn't like. A little spy. Yeah. Essentially, I was just like wearing a fake mustache. I ended up taking some of the employees from my office too. So I was like, teach me your ways. I'll be here forever. I live around the corner. I'm never going to move. Yeah. So it was. I went into it intentionally knowing I was going to leave. Yeah. And learning, right? So I went in, I learned what I could, and then I opened up my first office a year out, scratch start practice, no patient base, found an empty space, did the construction, did the build out. Yeah. Only because I wanted to learn every aspect of the business. Which is important. It's important. At that time, I thought it was really important. In hindsight, I probably would have done it different. I would have bought an existing practice. Okay. At that time, I really felt like I really needed to know even the construction side of an office. Yeah. Which, as a leasee. Yeah. Which I shouldn't ding so much because I learned a lot. Right. Right now, I can construct a dental office in my sleep because I did it 8 other times after that. So then I opened that first practice. Worked there, killed it that first year. But let me tell you, the first 6 months, I worked there 7 days a week. Yeah. I was there Monday through Sunday, 8 to 12 hours a day. What were you doing on Sunday? Even Sunday. You know why? Don't work on Sunday. Nobody worked on Sunday, so I saw it as an opportunity. I was like, if I work on Sunday, I'm the only guy that's open. So if you're in pain on a Sunday, you're coming to me. I used to have people drive from Indiana because no dentist was open. Yeah. They would drive all the way from Indiana. They have dentists in Indiana? No, just right. They would drive from Indiana all the way over there just to get seen, and then you know, that now I have a new patient. I mean, they wouldn't keep coming back, but still. Yeah. It was like building up the practice really quickly. So I did that for 7 months. I was tempted to take a mattress in and just sleep there at night because literally I would just go home, sleep, shower, come right back. That's definitely immigrant style, bro. That's what it is. Yeah. And that people tell me like, what? Because look, my first practice, we had 0 patients. And the first year we went from 0 to 1 million, right? Wow. And I have a CPA that works exclusively with dentists, and he's at the time he had worked in dental for 25 years. He goes, in my 25 years, I've never seen a dental office go from 0, like you just open your doors, to 1 million in a year, right? So he was like, how did you do it? Nuts. Yeah. And I was like, I was here 7 days a week. That's how I did it. I was working all day. I was working all day, every day. And every day. And you did that. So you worked 6 months. 6 months. So I did it for 6 months. After 6 months, it's not sustainable. After 6 months, I went back. I scaled back, but I had ramped up the office so quickly that I was able to bring in an associate within like 7-8 months.
Because you could actually pay them.
Because I could pay them.
Yeah.
I had enough patience to be able to have them there. Then I started working, I think it was like 4 or 5 days a week.
Yeah.
So then once that went well, I learned, so then I opened up the second location. And that's a big mistake that a lot of entrepreneurs make too, is thinking that because I did one thing really well, the next thing I do will also be done really well. But I didn't know at that time that the reason that first thing did really well was because of me, right? Because I was there 7 days a week. I put in all the time, energy.
You were the human capital.
I was the human capital. I was, talking to every single patient, making sure everybody had a great experience, boots on the ground. Then I opened the second location. I spent twice as much money as I did on the first one. And I spent like marketing. The first office I opened up, I didn't do a whole lot of marketing initially.
Yeah.
I think the first office I did maybe $2,000 to $3,000 of marketing the first month. Okay. The second office I opened up, I did $50,000 of marketing in month 1. Right.
Wow.
So we're talking about more than 10x.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm gonna kill this, right?
If you build it, they will come.
Yeah, they will come.
Tell them this is where it is.
I open up this office, and then the numbers are just not there.
Yeah.
Right. I didn't hit 1 million year one. I hit 600,000 year one, and I was just like, I stepped back and I was like, what happened? Like, I thought I did the same thing, and then that's when I realized how the human element is so critical to the success, right?
Yeah.
And then I started developing our training program because I can't clone myself, but if I could teach people to do some of the things that I did, now I can get better results. So then I started working on the business, right? Before I was just in the business. And so now I'm developing training programs, better hiring practices, and then I got that practice up too. But that was a learning experience because you just assume because you did it right for the first time. So I think a lot of people also grow too fast, and they don't understand that you need to build a business first. And once you have that, then you can scale it, right? Because otherwise you have a successful player, which was myself in that first business, and you can't duplicate that.
So how would you have done that differently?
So differently, I would have understood that I would have stepped back and said, before I open this next location, let me write down all the things that we're doing that are leading us to our success, right? Once I have that on paper and I can say, can I train somebody who I just brought in from the outside to do these things, and can I replicate this model as close as possible? And once I can answer yes to that, then I open up the second one. Because if you don't have that, you're just creating headaches for yourself. So I think you have to understand, when you build a business, you're essentially building a blueprint, right? And if you can replicate that blueprint, so think of like franchises. Why are franchises so successful? Is because they give you everything you need, right? So you're providing the workforce, and you're coming in and bringing in some capital and drive, but they give you the blueprint. Yeah. This is how you store the food. This is how you make the burger. This is how you ring somebody up, right? You can't mess it up. Just follow the blueprint and you'll be successful. And so I think as an entrepreneur, you have one successful business. You don't have a blueprint, and you go off and you try to duplicate it. Well, what are you duplicating, right? What is it that made you successful? And if you haven't defined that and been able to put it on paper, then it'll be a tough climb to get the second or third location to be as successful. So I opened up the second location. I learned with that second location, and then we started creating systems, programs, training. And when I opened up the third location, which was probably about 4 years after the first one, that one did a lot better. And so now I had started formulating a blueprint. And then eventually I opened up 8 locations within 10 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
So
almost a location a year.
Almost location
Which
a
is
year.
really, really good.
Yeah.
Because, it takes, if you think about a franchise model, it takes maybe a year to 3 years to get it up.
To get it up and going. Yeah. It was very aggressive.
It was like a franchise clinic.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what it turned into. And then I realized how much work goes into that. And when you don't have something, you're always like, oh yeah, it would be amazing if I had all these employees, and that's my picture of success. And then you get there and you realize like how much work and energy goes into it. And then I think for me, I started getting into real estate along this time. I had one of my practices that I opened up was the real estate was available for sale.
So you started buying. You first leased the first practice.
Yeah, the first four I leased.
Okay.
Then the fifth one came along, and it just happened to be where the property was also available for sale. It was a strip mall, right? So I ran the numbers, and I was like, well, even if I don't rent out the other spaces, it's still worth it for me to buy this building, even just for my own space. So I ended up buying the strip mall, and I put the practice in there, and then I fixed the strip mall up, and I started leasing out the other spaces. And I got them leased up, and then now I'm generating all this income from these tenants that I didn't really expect. And then I'm talking to some of the real estate brokers, and they're telling me that you just quadrupled the value of that building, right? And this took place over like 2-3 years. And that opened up my eyes to like commercial real estate. And I was like, wow.
Yeah.
Like I could do that.
Yeah.
And so then the next locations, I started buying all of the properties. And that's how I got into commercial real estate. And so now I would say 50% of my business comes from, commercial real estate. And it's one of those things that I wouldn't have thought of had that opportunity not came about. But now that I am in it, I see the opportunity and the potential in that space. So I'm actually scaling back some of the dental and moving more into real estate. You realize there's easier ways to make money.
Yeah.
And I think as you get older, you realize the value of your time. And so when you're younger, you're willing to exchange your time for money. As you get older, you start to go the other way, where you're willing to pay more or lose or not make as much and have more freedom and control over your time.
Yeah. I was talking to some younger people, and they were like, "Oh yeah, we had a layover," and I was like, "Layover?
Yeah,
it's a waste of my
time. I don't. If it's not a direct flight, I'm not going."
Dude, I don't even want to be in the airport like waiting in one of those lounges. Like if I'm in a lounge, that means I'm a failure at time management.
Time management. Yeah.
I need like maybe international. Okay,
right.
International layover. That's different.
Yeah.
But if I'm waiting in the airport, I'm like, oh my God, I lost the whole day. But that's interesting how your dentistry practice, right? Start off with you as a clinician, turned into a business, right? And then that business turned into a separate business, right? So how did you evaluate deals back then when you first started versus how you evaluate dental practice or even real estate deals now?
Yeah. Also too, I should mention during that process, I had probably another 5-6 different side ventures that I launched alongside the dental. I had a dental app that we launched when apps were really hot. I had a dental design build consulting service that I launched.
What did the app do?
The app was like, it used to connect dental offices to their patients, and you could download the app, you put in a code, and it would connect with your dental practice. It used to have a toothbrush tracker, so every time you brush at night, you would hit I brushed and flossed, and it would send a report to the office like this person is doing well with their like hygiene. It had a camera, you could take a picture of your teeth and whiten your smile through the app to see what you would look like with bleaching. It had, so like if you went in and you got a treatment plan for what you needed, it would send you educational videos as to why you needed those things. So it was like a platform.
Very cool. Yeah. The real app.
Yeah, it was a legit app.
Like I had
it was real. I had like 10 salespeople throughout the country selling this app. And it was one of those things where it was either focused on that or focused on the dental practices. And I just ended up selling it and focusing on dental practices, but it could have been its own thing.
Wow.
So I did a lot of those things, and like I said, most of them were failures. And then the commercial real estate was successful. So then going back to your question, I guess now when I look at things, before it was like, how does this fit into my dental world? Now I just look at it as a commercial deal. How does this make sense? It doesn't matter what kind of tenant is in there. I mean, it does. You want to have good quality tenants, but whether it's a dentist or a restaurant or something else, evaluating that, looking at the numbers to see. It's a set formula. So what's nice in commercial real estate is the joke is like the leases are what you're buying. The building is for free. So you're just buying kind of the contracts in place from the tenants. And so if you buy a building, let's say that doesn't have any tenants in there, and you put them in, you just created value for that building, and now you can sell it for more or hold it depending on what your strategy is. So now I look at short-term plays with real estate. What are things I could get in, create value, and sell, and take that capital and do something bigger? And then I look at long-term plays where it's like, what are some things that I can keep and build some cash flow that's a lot more passive than a dental practice? So let's say if I own a commercial building that generates $100,000 a year, but it only requires maybe, 100 hours of my time on an annual basis, that's better than a dental practice that generates $400,000 of revenue, but requires, 1,000 hours per year of my
because
time.
Oftentimes you have to actually go work in your
You
practice.
have to go, like a month ago, I had a doctor that like got sick and had a full day's patients, and they couldn't go in. And it was like, you either cancel everybody, which sucks, because if you had taken time off work to come to your dental appointment and now they call you the morning of and tell you that your appointment's canceled, you're not very happy. So then I was just like, screw it, I'll just go and see the patient. So, I jumped in and I did that. Whereas like you would never have to do that with commercial real estate, right? It's like,
No. Yeah. I mean, if you have to cancel a day of procedures, you're totally missing out on the one thing that you zoned in very early in your entrepreneurial journey was the human component.
The human component, right?
If you cancel people's surgeries, they, like you said, they're taking off from work, they have babysitters, all types of things are going on. And so that's a huge loss. For sure.
So it's just like I think that was the nice thing is dental allowed me to build the capital to be able to do other things. And I think that's what happens for a lot of entrepreneurs is you only know one area of play, and that's where you stay to and stick in, and you just work within that area. And then your eyes are opened up to different possibilities and different avenues that you can generate wealth and revenue. Yeah,
you touched on something where you talk about, a dentist is basically a person that uses their time for money, right? You have to go in, you have to do the root canals, you have to be physically present, your hands have to physically be activated, where you found these revenues where you were able to get time for skill, right? Time for investment. What kind of advice do you have for aspiring or young entrepreneurs to trade their time for skill?
I think I read the first time I actually saw the idea was I read the book Rich Dad Poor Dad when I was in my late 20s, and he was he talks about having your money work for you and you working for your money, right? And that's a concept that now I understand, but early on in life you don't really understand that. And there's no one right answer. It depends on where you are in life, right? Sometimes you have to if you didn't come from wealth, or you didn't come from connections that allow you to have capital, you have to create that initial seed money that you're going to use to generate wealth, right? And usually you have to go out and trade your time and perform a skill or a service to generate that capital. So if you have to go out and grind for a couple of years to build up some capital to be able to use that to launch a business, then that's what you got to do. And at that point in your life, you were working for the money. Eventually, the higher form is to have your money working for you, right?
Yeah.
Because that's how you gain back control over your time. And initially, when you're young, you got a lot more time than money, so you're willing to give up your time for the money. But as you get older, you're willing to give up some of the money for the time. So the key is to set yourself up, no matter what your profession is, so that you have money generating money for you, whether that's through stocks, real estate investments, whatever. There's a zillion different ways you can generate passive income, but ultimately you want to be able to have your money working for you so that if you're not physically able to go to work, you're not sitting at home, losing money and not earning anything and not able to pay for your bills.
Yeah, that's a tough one because you oftentimes find yourself, especially when you're younger, you're thinking like, yeah, I have all of this time in the world. Like, I'll just go to work. I could just put in more hours. I could, especially, particularly like in healthcare, medicine, and dentistry, where if you want to go on a vacation, just go do a shift.
Yeah.
Right. It's very difficult, I think, for that healthcare professional, that clinician brain, that doctor, that nurse to transition into that business role, because it's just so much easier just to go work harder.
It is. Well, but the problem is, look, you're dependent on your body, right?
Yes.
Whereas if you set something up that generates income for you, irrespective of your health, then you never have to worry about having to be healthy and be on all the time, because this thing is generating money for you irrespective. Whereas if I'm a dentist and God forbid I get into an accident,
oh my God,
and let's say it's not even anything crazy, but I break my arm skiing. Yeah. Right? I just went to Aspen for the weekend. I fell down and I broke my arms. What am I going to do? Now, you know, there's some insurance that'll kick in, and maybe I've thought about that, but maybe it's something where I can't practice anymore. Totally. Right? And now what? You know? Yeah. I either go back and maybe I start teaching, or, you know, I'm scrambling to figure out what I want to do. Whereas if I had invested in trying to build something that generates income for me, I wouldn't have that issue. So I think, look, irrespective of how much you get paid, if you're an employee and you're an hourly wage earner or you're a salary earner, you're still the one working for that money, right? You are the slave to that money, right? Versus in the flip side, if you can make the money your employee, now the money's out there working for you and you're its master, right? So I think that's the goal to get to, so that you can live a more secure lifestyle. And it's not to say that if you go that way, you can't, right? Maybe you're lucky, you stay healthy, you can work for 60 years, you know, and generate a lot of money. And maybe the job you worked at has a pension plan and you don't have to worry about that. That's okay. That works out for some people too, right? Construction workers have setups like that. But ultimately, my recommendation is for most people to start thinking about, what can I invest in that's going to be a little nest egg for me and start generating some money for me while I sleep.
Absolutely. I mean, I think as a clinician, if you injure yourself and you're a clinician, you know, on an entrepreneurial track, right? That disability insurance that you get it doesn't kick in for 90 days.
It doesn't kick in for 90 days, and it's usually not 100% of your salary. It's usually like a percentage of it, right?
Yes. I mean, yes, it's just it's a percentage of it. So you won't be like sitting there with broken arms, you know, collecting a check that you're like proud of.
And on top of that, like if you're, let's say, physically able to go, but you have pain, that's still not going to kick in. So now you're working through the pain because you have to, because your insurance didn't accept, you know, your injury as an actual injury, but now you're miserable because you have this like nerve pain or whatever.
Oh my God. Yeah. Well, spoiler alert, folks. If you are indeed injured long enough to, you know, for 90 days for your insurance, your disability insurance to kick in, you're probably going to be injured for the rest of your life. Yeah. Right? It's very few things that you can't heal within 90 days. Yeah. Most things 6 weeks. You break your wrist, you know, 6 weeks, a month. Yeah. So I don't want to say that it's a scam, because it's nice that it gives you some insurance, but
it's a scam.
It's a scam.
Yeah, that's like I had business liability insurance. I still do forever. Oh COVID comes along and they're like business. I paid extra for business disruption insurance, right? So
acts of God.
If your business is disrupted, that's when business disruption insurance should kick in. There was literally a clause in the insurance claim that said, it said viruses, alien attacks, and like a few other crazy things that you would never think of. Like the business disruption insurance doesn't kick in under these circumstances. I'm like, what are the virus?
The only things that would
actually create
this need for the insurance.
For the insurance, it didn't cover it. So I was mad at that.
Oh man, I can only imagine. Well, man, I have one more question for you. For all the aspiring clinicians, the doctors, the nurses, the dentists, everyone out there that wants to start a business. Yep. What is your What are your thoughts or advice on the possibilities?
I think it boils down to, I think the first question you should ask yourself is why, right? Why do I want to start this other business? What is my motivation? Is it purely financial? Is it I'm not getting fulfilled at my current job? Is it I'd like to build something because I believe I have the expertise to do something different? Answer that question first. Once you know why you're doing it, then you can decide if it's something you should be doing. At that point, I would do some research and I would talk to people in that field, right? If I want to open up my own ophthalmology center, I'm going to go talk to some people that own their own ophthalmology center, and I'm going to get some feedback from them, right? Then once you have that clear picture of what goes into it, then I think, and it all makes sense to you, don't let the fear hold you back. Jump in and do it. And you're going to make mistakes. That's just part of the process. But if your motivation is true and the reason you're doing it is sound and you have a good understanding of what it takes, then I think you're going to be successful. But if you don't have those two things and you're doing it just because you think you should be doing it, or you're doing it because your mom told you should be doing it, or you're doing it because you see your boss making a lot of money and you're like, I want to make that kind of money, right? Then you haven't done the adequate amount of research to take on that risk. So it's not a risk when you know what the pitfalls and downfalls are and what the most you have to lose is. But it's a big risk if you don't know that information and you're just going in blindly, right? So I would say do some self-analysis, do some analysis of the marketplace and what goes into that type of business. And then once you know those two things, if you can stomach those, then put the fear aside, put your ego aside, and jump right in.
Thank you. This has been excellent.
Thanks for having me.
You dropped a lot of bombs here. I have to admit.
I tried. Hopefully somebody gets some use out of it.
No, this was good, man. Good. You got to let us know when you open up Dr. Milad University.
The university, yeah, coming soon. Yeah, online university. That's what I want to be. Listen, these OnlyFans models are making crazy money off these subscription models.
Content.
30, 40 million. Let me just get a couple.
Yeah, seriously. I mean, my toes are not that great. So I have other skills. We can do something.
But that's we're not physically that good looking, but we could sell our mental.
And we know that.
We know that.
See, I know that. Yeah. We know. Like, listen, I'm not trying to commoditize my beauty.
Exactly.
I have other things.
I have other things on my mind. So let me see how I could use that and commoditize that.
Well, thanks for coming on. I'm sure you'll be on again.
Yeah, appreciate it. This is great. Yeah.
Best of luck to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.